In this video, we're going to be talking about writing the body paragraphs of your essay. Our objective is to draft a rhetorical analysis essay, and we are only going to be writing what I call a skeleton essay, so the bare bones of your essay, which is a thesis and body paragraphs. And in the previous lesson, you drafted a thesis, so now we're moving on to the body paragraphs. In your essay, you are going to be drafting 2 to 3 body paragraphs depending on what makes the most sense for your argument. Keep in mind that your body paragraphs are not just going to be listing the strategies that Turkle uses in her argument. You're going to be analyzing the specific rhetorical moves that she makes, what their intended effects are on the reader. So what is her purpose for those specific rhetorical moves when building her argument? So hopefully this is just a review, a refresher of the components of body paragraphs. Your body paragraphs are basically CER paragraphs. And the first sentence of your body paragraph we call topic sentences. So that's where you have that mini claim that supports your thesis. In your topic sentence, you're identifying a specific rhetorical move that Turkle makes and the author's intended purpose. Then you'll be using evidence. So direct quotes from the text, paraphrasing, summarizing, and we're going to go into more detail about that in the next slides. And then your commentary or your reasoning. So this is where your ideas come in, and you're explaining how that evidence proves the claim that you made in your topic sentence and relates to your thesis. So how does that rhetorical move work? And for what purpose? So why is she making that particular rhetorical move in order to build her argument? Okay, let's talk about embedding text evidence. So we want to make sure that we are smoothly incorporating direct quotations from Turkle's argument, and we're not just dropping them in, what I call hit and run quotes, where you just drop it in without any lead in or signal phrase. Each quotation that you include, each direct quote, needs to be introduced in some way and then followed by your analysis and how it supports your claim. To correctly embed quotations, we want to do the following. We're going to use a signal phrase to introduce the quotation. And this is where the rhetorically accurate verbs list in your binder comes in. So some examples are Sheffield answers her critics by conceding, and then the text evidence. Many opponents of the death penalty agree, and then the text evidence. And if we are using direct quotes from the text, that means we see it in the text, we take it out, we pop it in our writing, you have to use quotation marks around those quotes. Then for the commentary and reasoning. So this seems to be the trickiest part for students. You are answering 2 questions. How does the evidence prove my claim? And what effect does this rhetorical move have on her audience? So for the first part of your commentary, we're going to say, because Turkle, and then what is it that she is doing with that rhetorical move? And then what is the intended effect of that rhetorical move on her audience? And we're going to look at an example in just a minute. And then what is the effect of that rhetorical move on her audience? So what is her intended effect? This moves her audience to what does she want them to believe or do now as a result of this rhetorical move. So as a reminder of the thesis, this is from the 1.6 lesson. In the article, There Will Never Be an Age of Artificial Intimacy, Turkle alarms the reader about what they risk losing as they become increasingly attached to the virtual, and by highlighting the sacred nature of humanity through emotionally loaded language, in order to persuade her audience that empathy is a uniquely human experience. In my body paragraph, I start with my topic sentence. Turkle opens her argument with an alarming anecdote of a 16-year-old girl to highlight the absurdity of the teens theory and then warn that future generations may no longer be able to experience empathy. So the rhetorical move that I am analyzing is this anecdote. And the purpose of including the anecdote is to highlight the absurdity of the teens theory and then warn that future generations may no longer be able to experience empathy. For my evidence, where I am proving that she does this, Turkle introduces the teen as already disillusioned with humanity since she theorizes about finding the ideal virtual companion who won't walk away or leave you or anything like that. So I'm using a rhetorically accurate verb. She introduces this quote, or she introduces this anecdote. She then undermines the teenager's theory by explaining that machines are incapable of experiencing empathy because they feel nothing of the human loss or love we describe to them. She then extends the logic, warning that children will lose the ability to have empathy if they only practice empathy with machines. So remember when we did the card folding tower activity, we talked about how each of those individual moves has a specific purpose. So each of these individual moves within this big rhetorical move has specific purposes. Then for my reasoning, I am explaining what she's doing in this rhetorical move and how that has an intended effect on her audience. Because Turkle acknowledges the teen's perspective and demonstrates the absurdity of the idea that human connection can be replaced with that of the virtual, most people in her audience will be able to identify with the vulnerability and naivete of being a teenager. So what she is doing is acknowledging the teen's perspective, like this is what teenagers or some teenagers think, and demonstrates that that idea is absurd. That goes back to this undermining here, because these robots cannot actually experience empathy and they feel nothing of human loss, etc. Then furthering my explanation of the effect of this rhetorical move, since audience understand teenagers' tendency to focus on immediate gratification rather than genuine long-term satisfaction, readers can realize that the idea presented in the anecdote isn't realistic or sustainable. So this right here is my analysis. This is what she does. This is the intended effect on the audience. This is why this move matters, what she is doing here. And then lastly, this is the effect on the audience. This moves her audience to fear a future in which relationships are replaced with those with robots and reject this idea. So this is the intended effect. What is she wanting her audience to do or believe? She's wanting them to believe that in the future this is something that could possibly happen, and then reject this idea before we get to that point and we suffer the consequences of it. So on your guided notes, make sure you have identified these parts of the body paragraph so that you have a model when you start drafting your own.